I wasn't hardly thinking about cancer. I was so naive. I really wasn't looking at anything on Google. I was looking at a little bit of stuff, and I'd say, "Oh, well, that's not me. That's not gonna happen." But then when it came back, and the first time it came back, I thought, "Oh wait, this can come back," and it went away. And then in 23, it came back again, and I thought, "Oh man, this really can come back." Hi, I'm Kim, and in 2021, I was diagnosed with stage 2B clear cell ovarian cancer. So the past 4 years has been very nerve-wracking, very emotional, and yet amazing. September of 2020 is when I first experienced a major pain on my right side. And so I went to the emergency room, and I think they may have given me some morphine, but they did some CTs, and they didn't see anything. It was on my right side. They didn't see anything, so I left the ER being diagnosed with gas. So that was a little embarrassing, but I felt okay leaving. So that was in September of 20. And then we come around to about January of 21, and I've always been a cougher. I have asthma, and so coughing wasn't out of the ordinary, but when I'd cough, I would experience, some incontinence, and it was worrisome, but it didn't really, I was 46. There was a lot of symptoms I thought maybe had to do with menopause. And so I was kind of excited. I'm like, oh, menopause, let's do this. And so that was January, February, still some menopausal symptoms. And then February still, and then around April, my birthday was in April, and looking back at the pictures, I was really at my largest. I was just bloated and heavy, but I didn't really think too much. I do like to eat, and so, but then, and I was in bed one night, and I just felt this hardness in on my right side, and I was like, whoo, and because I cough so much, I thought, hey, maybe those are ab muscles that I'm feeling because I've coughing, and that's pretty good exercise. And so again, nothing. I started waking up in the middle of the night with some bad pain again, similar to September. And so I thought, so in the middle of the night, I would take some ibuprofen and lay back down, and I felt fine. May 16th, 2021, I will never forget. I woke up at about 3 a.m, and I was doubled over with some bad pain on my right side. And I kind of fell back to sleep. And then about 8, 9 o'clock, I was still in really bad pain. And my wife, Jennifer, I said, look, this is really bad. She goes, we need to go to the ER? I'm like, no, they're just going to say it's gas again. And I don't want to pay for that again. But it was just 20 times worse. And so I said, you know what? Let's go to the emergency room. They can call it gas. I don't care what they call it. Just make it go away. This was all an emergency situation at this point. So it's not like, I was going to doctors for a year and they were saying, oh, you got acid reflux, take this. Oh, you've got problems with gas, take, it wasn't like that. Thankfully, I'm very thankful. Ovarian cancer is the silent killer because it can go on and on and on, and women are not properly diagnosed for quite some time. And that's really unfortunate. So here I was in the emergency room, and I had a doctor who just saw this mass, and they did, additional scans. They did all the scanning, and he thought, let's do a CA-125 test. The CA-125 is a test. It's a cancer antigen 125. And if that number is elevated, that could be a good baseline. It's not a diagnostic test necessarily, but if it's elevated, they're going to do more investigating. Now, my CA-125 at that point, when I had this huge mass, was only 67. And there's women who I've heard of that can have a up to 3,000 and they don't even have ovarian cancer yet. Mine is 67, but he still thought he's not giving up on this ovarian cancer, theory. And I'm so thankful. Um, you know, I am forever grateful for these doctors in the emergency room in the city I was living in. I live in Arkansas, but so I live in a big area. Okay, that leads me to so I'm in the emergency room. They do more tests. They're sure it is something ominous. They admit me because, I've heard this before, we don't want to do an emergency surgery if we don't have to. So let's admit you overnight. And then the gynecologist in the morning, they had it set up for a surgery. And so in the meantime, they admit me and I start filling up with ascites. Ascites is fluid. I don't have a medical definition of ascites or why, but anyway, I started filling up. Well, I'm on the second floor, which is excuse me, I don't know the right terminology, but it's the floor where women have babies, right? And so I've never had children, but so I'm walking the halls and I look like I'm getting ready to have a baby. I'm huge with this ascites. And they had to drain off several liters before the surgery. I go into surgery. This doctor was completely amazing. She got in there and she's like, "This is beyond my scope. It's beyond what we can do." And it's a fairly good sized hospital, but they just don't have the right kind of. When you have ovarian cancer, now this is not a medical. I'm not saying this because I'm a doctor, but I'm a strong believer. Ovarian cancer needs a gynecologic oncologist, not just a regular OBGYN, which that's what she was. So she got in there, said, sewed me back up and came down and talked to my wife. And my dad was there and my mom was there. And she took my wife aside and said, "Look, this is ominous for ovarian cancer. This is beyond our scope. We need to get her transferred to a bigger hospital that can handle this. Everything's gonna be all right. Everything's gonna be all right." Pack me up. They medicate me up. They pack me up and they ship me via ambulance 5 hours to St. Louis, Missouri, to Barnes Jewish. My vitals were starting to go down. I read that my oxygen got down to 80 and, I was sick and, just vomiting. I was really sick. And Friday they got me in. They got me into surgery. Got in there and looked around. I had a radical hysterectomy, both ovaries, everything removed, and they found the tumor. It was a cantaloupe-sized tumor on my right side ovary, and they diagnosed it as clear cell ovarian cancer. I thought, well, clear cell, well, that doesn't sound too bad. It's clear. No, clear cell is very aggressive, very odd. Not too many women in this country have clear cell. Normally it's high serous or low, but this is clear cell. And so we now know it's aggressive and it had to have just popped up really quickly. But they get all that out. And the doctor was very confident. She said, "Look, we removed, I think, 28 lymph nodes. Your tumor was 17 centimeters, so very large. And we got all of it out." And she says, "Look, I feel really hopeful that you are now no evidence of disease of cancer. I really believe we get all this out. However, you will need to follow up with chemotherapy." I'm very thankful. I do have a very strong faith in God. And I believe that God will give you exactly the perfect strength when you need it. And I think that's what was happening to me. I think God really gave me just a sense of peace. Okay, it's ovarian cancer. I've got great doctors. God's got all of this under control, and I didn't Google anything right away. I didn't go ask Dr. Google, anything right away. Didn't watch any videos. It took me quite a while, but I was truly at peace with the diagnosis. I was confident that they got it all, and they did at that time. But you have to remember, this is clear cell we're dealing with, and it was a 2B. They diagnosed stage it at 2B, so it means with two, it went. I think it's because the rupture, the tumor was actually rupturing, and I think they had to get some off, maybe the bowel or something. It obviously had spread a little bit somewhere to have a 2B, but I was fine with that. I thought, hey, we got it all. Let's just plow through this chemo, and it'll be fine. 6 weeks later, I get in to meet the staff there at Holston Cancer Center, and they inserted my port for me. I still have my port. I love it, and they inserted the port. And that day, it was June 30th of 2021. I start my chemotherapy. 6 rounds of chemo. I ended up losing my hair like you do. I think it's the carbotaxol, or I'm not sure, but one of those will make you lose your hair. And so I lost my hair, and I didn't. This is going to sound strange maybe for a woman, because I know hair really that can be really your identity, and when you have long, beautiful hair, and I always keep my hair short. But I was bald, and I kind of liked it, actually. I embraced it, and people were like, oh, hey, you have a nice head shape. And so I took it as a compliment, and we had a head shaving party, and my family showed up for me, and my dad shaved his head, and people online. We did it live on social media live, and people were on there, and it really meant a lot. I tell you, when you go through anything big, community is important, and it's important to have people around you that care and love you, and they want to help. And a lot of times they don't know how to help, but I really had a lot of people show up for me. So went through the 6 rounds of chemotherapy, and it was tough. It was really hard. I have the initial frontline 6 rounds of the chemo, and it was extremely hard on my body. I experienced some toxicity, but they adjusted. I had to have several blood transfusions. My platelets kept going. And then once that was done, October of 21, that was done. So we're in October of 21, go all the way through 22. I had a great year, no evidence of disease. We were able to go to Jamaica. It hit us, you know what? If we're going to do it, if we're going to live life, we just had a wake up moment of life is short, guys. And we were able to go to Jamaica. But so the whole year of 22, I was feeling pretty good. I was still kind of recovering from the chemo. That was tough stuff. But, and then I wanted my port out on December 6th, 2022 was the date I was set to have my port removed. So remember, December 6th, just keep that in your mind, December 6th. And, about November of 2022, I started feeling some swelling, and I thought, oh no. And I kind of kept it quiet, and kind of for 2 weeks, it was getting bigger and bigger till finally I mentioned it to my wife. I'm like, is this real? And she's like, oh my gosh, why didn't you tell me? And so December 6th, or this was no, I'm sorry, back up. November So I'm starting to feel this swelling. So I contact my doctor and I said, hey, let's put off taking the port out yet. I'm feeling some swelling. Let's wait on that. I had an actual doctor's appointment in Springfield on December 6th. I go in there and my doctor feels around because she's like thinking maybe a boil or something. She's not thinking of cancer, because she's thinking positively, but she's, oh, whoa, whoa. She sends me immediately across the street for scans. And sure enough, on both sides, I have an apple size lymph node and I don't know, two really large lymph nodes. It's all fruit related, a fruit basket. But anyway, so big tumors. And I didn't get my port out, thankfully. And so surgery was scheduled pretty much the next week. They removed those lymph nodes. And then the next treatment is radiation. So I had a PET scan in January of 23, and it showed just cancer all in my inguinal and just everywhere. So I went through radiation all through my abdominal area, and that was 6 weeks. I was 2 hours from home. The radiation was every day for 10 minutes. And so I had to stay up there for 6 weeks. At this point, my ovarian cancer is determined to be platinum resistant, as many, I think many turn out to be that way. And it may just be, especially with clear cell, it's platinum resistant. If your cancer comes back within a certain amount of time, I don't know what that time is, but it will be considered platinum resistant. So let's go on with some other kind of chemo. Doxil, it was very harsh. The side effects of that, I had like shingles type blisters everywhere. In my mouth were full of sores. It was, but you know what? I'm pushing. I'm going to do it. As I finished that chemotherapy in 23, they put me on, it's called Avastin, and it's an immunotherapy. And what that does is supposed to do, I believe, is supposed to cut off blood supplies to capillaries that, because tumors need blood to grow. And so the idea behind that is let's cut off that blood supply. I was on that for quite a few months. I think it did a good job. And the thing about a lot is it does a good job until it doesn't. And so they start, let's see, 23. And then it started firing up again. And so they put me on Keytruda. Keytruda is not really approved for clear cell ovarian cancer yet. It's approved for other clear cell cancers, but we're getting there. So my latest scan is showing, fortunately, everything up here that was firing up in my axilla, everything is clear and gone now. But now in my lower right groin, they're showing one cancerous lymph node, and that will be surgically removed. And then hopefully they won't find any more, and I won't need any follow-up radiation or chemo. We're just going to get back on Keytruda and just keep going there. Mentally, when you have a cancer that goes away and then might or might not come back, the whole year of 2022, I wasn't hardly thinking about cancer. I was so naive. I really wasn't looking at anything on Google. I was looking at a little bit of stuff, and I'd say, "Oh, well, that's not me. That's not going to happen." But then when it came back, and the first time it came back, I thought, "Oh, wait, this can come back," and it went away. And then in 23, it came back again, and I thought, oh man, this really can come back. And then it's come back again now. Mentally, I really have to balance my mind, and it's really difficult. Again, I really rely on God and my wife and my family for peace. It's really hard some days mentally, and people, I try to put on a smile. We try to joke about it, and it takes away the stigma, the fear. The more you talk about it, like we're talking about this right now, the more you talk about it, the more you can feel like someone needs to hear this. Someone needs hope and inspiration, and don't give up. That's my message, is don't give up. But then there's some days I'm human, and I'll go to bed and cry, or certain songs I can't listen to. But it's like I feel like I just am looking over my shoulder. Don't say no to people when they want to help, because that is their blessing. I know I feel good about when I can help people. I don't want people to tell me, no, you can't help me. Um, I feel good about helping. We're humans. We feel good to help each other. So, let the angels come out of the woodwork and just let people wrap their arms around you. I had some people that were friends. I didn't really know them all that well, but man, they threw a fundraiser for me to help. And at the time, we lived in a little cul-de-sac, and they all gathered. And I mean, people just want to help. People are there for each other. I don't remember what was Mr. Rogers had a saying. He said, "When I was a boy, and I would see scary things in the news, my mother would say to me, 'Look for the helpers. You will always find people helping.'" And that's so true. You will look for the helpers, and don't think of it as a sign of weakness, because you're always going to find a helper, and you could always be that helper. When you're feeling strong enough, look for opportunities to help and be a helper too.